Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Unfortunately, guys, for the second week running, we are not in the East Dulwich Tavern. Unfortunately, coronavirus has finally caught up with Henry Hill, our other cat of 9 lives. Henry, how are you feeling? Are you okay?
I feel completely fine. Thank you, Doogie. It's a weird one. But yes, after 2 years as a COVID fugitive, I've finally been caught, you could say. Normally, after Mikey, basically every week has been scaring us by threatening to almost catch it. I don't think you have caught it, have you, Mikey? But
I'm still clear. I'm still clear for now.
Still clear, yeah. I've finally been struck down. But the benefit is my whole house have been. So at least we've got like complete freedom of movement in the house. And actually, our neighbours have caught it as well. I think we all went to the same party at the weekend. We've been messing around, like we've made like a tin can phone between the two of our houses.
Oh, I love it. Do those actually work?
Not yet, but I'm sure I'm figuring out ways to get it to work. But yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on that success. But yes, as Mikey said last week, a bit boring. 2 years in, what can you do? But yeah, other than that, I'm really well. How are you, Doogie?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. My team slightly improved last night. We didn't lose 22 this time. It was 8-1. So yeah, big improvement there. Enjoyed the game. We've got a new formation, which was fun to play. We just stayed in a box formation, 1 in goal and then 2 and 2, ultra defensive. And it really came, it nearly came off, really. We were 2-1 down at half time. They slightly went away with it in the second half. So much improved. McCubs, how are you doing? Are you fighting fit today?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm all right. I've had one of
it.
those weeks where I've not been isolating, but I feel like I have been indoors an awful lot. So yeah, I need to
get out there, smell the roses, big man.
Absolutely. So yeah, nothing to report on really, Dukes. Just been watching the Premier League this week, really.
Yeah, it's been back, and we've had a bit of Coppa Italia as well. It's been very exciting. Yes. But today's episode is, of course, on what is returning next week, guys. It is the Champions League, and it's back on Tuesday. Very, very exciting. So today we want to pick out some potential shocks, maybe, of the last 16 round, players to watch, and so much more. But it's actually been ages since the draw. So before we kick off, I want to remind you of the ties. So we've got PSG versus Real Madrid on Tuesday night, along with Sporting CP versus Man City. Then on Wednesday, we'll see RB Salzburg take on Bayern Munich, and Inter Milan versus Liverpool, which could be a potential classic. Then the following week, we've got Chelsea versus Lille. Chelsea are obviously doing the Club World Cup at the moment, so they obviously couldn't take part next week. And then Villarreal Juventus. Then it's Atletico Madrid versus Man United, and Benfica versus Ajax. So some quite exciting ties, I believe. We want to kick off with potential shocks. And AT Murphy 7 said, out of Man United versus Atletico, who do you think will win this tie? McCarbs, as the Man United fan, we might as well come to you first. Would you say Man United beating Atletico Madrid is a shock given their current form this season?
I mean, I think given Champions League pedigree, I think, Man United, go into it as the underdogs. But based on current form, it's quite difficult to choose between the two. Atletico Madrid and United have both been pretty poor defensively in recent months. Man United have been threatening to improve. I think in the last month under Rangnick, I think their last 2 performances have actually been among the best of the whole season. But having said that, the defence is still quite vulnerable, even with Varane in there at the back. So I think it's quite difficult to choose between the two in that sense. And I think it kind of depends on what Atletico can offer going forward, because Joao Felix and Luis Suarez are not in particularly good form. They're kind of having to rely on Angel Correa for goals at the moment. Yannick Carrasco continues to be brilliant down the left, but that midfield is still a bit of a mystery, I think, under Simeone in terms of how, in terms of who actually works best, who's actually supplying the forward line. I think in that sense you could maybe pick for Man United, just because I think there are players in that forward line who are coming into form. I think in particular Jadon Sancho is really threatening to hit his best form so far for United. So I think it's basically going to depend on which attackers turn up, because I think it could be a really entertaining tie, one that we're not used to seeing from Atleti over the last few years.
Okay, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more even than people would have thought when the ties were made a couple of months ago. But I was looking into Atleti's sort of performances in the big games so far this season, and they've been really, really poor. So get this, they've lost to Real Madrid, Sevilla, Barca in the league. They've also dropped points versus Villarreal twice. They've drawn against Athletic Club, Real Sociedad and Valencia. They lost to Real Sociedad in the Copa del Rey and Athletic Club in the Supercopa. And we saw last weekend them getting sort of thrashed by Barcelona. I mean, Henry, at this stage, do we have to say it would be a surprise if Atleti went through this tie? I mean, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, I mean, contrary to what McCubbin said, I think it's going to be a pretty turgid couple of legs. I'm not expecting any fireworks in this one, personally. I mean,
even with those defences, Henry, you think they're going to hold firm?
I think United have been fine defensively. I think if you look at their sort of turnaround under Rangnick, I think they've picked up a reasonable number of points. He claimed recently that they have improved, and I do sort of believe him a little bit. And it depends what kind of defence he goes with moving onward for the rest of the season. But I mean, once again, yeah, you're right. I put Manchester United as favourites for this victory. I just think their attack is just a little bit more cohesive, and people like Ronaldo. Ronaldo loves playing against Atletico Madrid. He really does. I think he seems to come alive. Certainly for this fixture more than any. I was watching that video of him sort of dragging Juventus back against Atleti after they'd sort of after they booed and hissed him, and then he just completely made a mockery of them back in Turin.
And those fans are like, cry more, Ronaldo, cry more, and then he goes 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it is class. I completely agree. So yeah, I think, I for me, United are favourites for this tie. I think, just given the current state of Atletico, I mean, to lose 4-2 to Barcelona, to concede 4 more goals. We were talking last week about how this is easily the worst worst year for conceding goals that Atleti have had under Diego Simeone. It's only got worse, hasn't it? After that sort of mauling, I was pleased to see my prediction that Barca would rise. This would be their crowding moment paid off, although even I can quite predict in such an emphatic fashion. So yeah, for me, I'm going to go for United, maybe by across the 2 legs by a 1 or 2 goal margin, but not a particularly exciting affair. But I can see why people might think that it could be a bit more exciting than I'm giving it credit for.
There we have it. Yeah, it'd be a massive step for United to make the quarterfinals. They made it once in 2013-14 and once in 2018-19, where they eventually got thrashed by Barcelona after beating PSG. But that's the only times they've made it in the post-Fergie era, which is kind of mad considering their spending and sort of standing within the game. Obviously, a few years in that they didn't even qualify for the Champions League. Let's move on to the next game we wanted to talk about, which is Inter Milan versus Liverpool. And I think about a month ago, Henry, we probably would have said that Inter Milan had, if not a good chance of causing an upset here, at least an outside chance. But Nicolo Barella has been suspended for both games. I mean, that's a big blow for Inter. I mean, how do you see this tie going? Do you give any hope for Inter?
Yeah, of course I give hope for Inter. I think you don't quite know what you're going to get from them at the moment. That AC Milan defeat last week, they went ahead and sort of sat off, and I think a lot of the fans criticised them trying to maybe defend that 1-0 lead that they had, and then obviously Giroud caught them out. So that was a surprise. I didn't see that. But then against Roma midweek in the Coppa Italia, very impressive once more. I mean, some of the best long-range efforts I've ever seen in one game from one side. They were sort of peppering goal from everywhere. Like you said, Barella sadly missing, but Alexis Sanchez scored a great goal, one of the best. And he in the cups this year, he's been stunning for Inter Milan. And you know, this is a big moment for Inter Milan too. It's been a while since they've had an opportunity to be in a Champions League of a quarter-final, and I think it is basically a free hit for them going into this match. So yeah, we'll see. Although Liverpool just do look quite imperious, it remains to be seen just where the headspace of Salah is at the moment. Understandably pretty upset after the AFCON final, but they've just got so much strength and depth running through that side. I love Diogo Jota. I think he's just fantastic, and I'm so excited to see how he's going to become a greater part of that Liverpool side going forward. But yeah, it is tricky, and considering the fact Inzaghi will probably have to play Gagliardini, Vidal or Vecino in midfield, it's not as strong as perhaps you'd hope, especially coming against the Liverpool machine. But, players like Jordan Henderson, James Milner, if they can win the battle in the midfield, if they can try and get some joy in the midfield, then I think Inter do have a chance, because that's where Liverpool have maybe been lacking a little bit this season. People claiming that maybe Henderson's slightly gone off the pace this term, and we know that Klopp likes to use Milner in the Champions League in these kind of big matches. So maybe if they can try and get some joy there, why not? But yeah, Liverpool probably are favourites for this. But hey, it's a big night. Big night at the San Siro. I'd back into to do well.
Yeah, they've had some good performances as well entering the Champions League so far this year as well. Dzeko scoring some beautiful goals. Lautaro Martinez has just taken a step up as well. And Calhanoglu's form this year has actually just been really consistent as well. I think this will be Liverpool in the end quite comfortably, but I wouldn't be surprised, as in I think the result will be quite comfortable. But I think Inter will cause them some issues, definitely. And you're totally right to point out that some of their players' form has been questioned. I mean, the likes of Mane have had their form questioned at points this year. Henderson, as you mentioned. Andy Robertson had a very sort of quiet start to the season by his high standards as well, but it's come into his own in the last few months. So we'll see with Liverpool versus Inter Milan. Our final potential shock, McCubs, Football 8716 asked, do you think PSG have enough quality to beat Real Madrid over 2 legs? I mean, would this be a shock if PSG beat Real Madrid?
No, I don't think so. I think they have the better squad, don't they? I think in terms of, it's weird with PSG because they're running away with Ligue 1, and yet everyone is saying that they're having a terrible season. Yeah. Whereas Real Madrid are winning La Liga and do look really good, but it's mainly down to 2 players being on absolute flames, and they've struggled when they haven't had them in the team, as we saw on the weekend. So. I think it's a fairly even tie in that sense. I think Real Madrid are probably in a better place overall. I think that that team is just a bit more settled, but I think PSG have a much stronger bench. I think they have I think they just have a wider variety of weapons in that starting lineup. And you've put down here as Vinicius versus Achraf Hakimi as the kind of key battle, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see how this is a huge game for Hakimi playing against his former club, and if he can kind of reproduce the kind of form that we know that he could have a really big bearing on this game. Equally, this is Vinicius's first real time to properly shine on the European stage since he's established himself as a real star at the Bernabeu, and we've seen him produce in big games in the Champions League in the past, even when he's not been in his best form in La Liga. I think particularly against Liverpool last year, I think against Man City, I seem to remember him being very, very useful in 2019-20, although they eventually lost that tie. So yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, I think it'll be a great game. Although I'm kind of bored of seeing it come up because I feel like they play each other all the time. Yeah, we've had it a few
times now. Yeah.
But equally, PSG are in better form than they have been. Messi and Mbappe looked really sharp against Lille the other night, didn't they? They got a little bit fortunate with a couple of those goals due to goalkeeping errors, but nevertheless, they do look pretty strong at the moment. So yeah, this is a really tough one to call. I think it's always really tough to call between these two. I can't really call it at this stage.
Ooh, there we have it. I mean, Henry, you are currently leading our Big Match Predictions League, or at least were until last week, drawing with me. Well, I mean, we need a little prediction, maybe a little score prediction. Why don't you just throw one in here? What do you think Tuesday night is going to bring to us?
I think this is going to be class. This game,
like it.
Oh goodness! I just want to shout out Courtois and in goal. I think he's been quietly just excellent for Real Madrid
again.
This year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, doesn't get the respect he deserves in that big conversation. He's just amazing. I'm going to go for... Oh, go on then. Real Madrid, 2-1.
Really? Love it. Okay. I do think Real Madrid have a very good side, and the main difference this year has been their attack has got slightly better. Atleti, Barcelona obviously dropped off quite significantly. Sevilla and Real Betis have got a fair amount better, but has that defence really had the regular test that an Mbappe, Messi, Di Maria front line can give you? just probably not, and that does slightly concern me. I think Vasquez is out at the moment as well, and then that back line, I think it's been great, but we've seen a couple of mistakes from Eder Militao in the last couple of months. Mondi's fitness has been up and down as well. If they've got to play Marcelo, I don't know. I think PSG could have serious impact. The only team that I've really seen shut out PSG really effectively in the last couple of years is Man City in the last leg and a half of that tie last year in the semi-finals, and PSG didn't really cause them too many issues, but at full strength, and PSG won't because they won't have Neymar, unfortunately. I can see them causing Real Madrid a lot of issues, so I think this is going to have goals in it. I'm kind of with Henry. I'm not going to give it a score prediction, but yeah, Achraf Hakimi versus Vinicius Junior, definitely the clash that I'm most excited to about this one. Okay, let's move on to our unexpected great game section of this. I think Villarreal versus Juventus could be actually more exciting than people are giving it credit for. Most people who looked at this tie and thought Juve, they probably got a great chance of qualifying for their first quarter-final since 2018-19. Their form in Serie A has actually been very good. Only Napoli have picked up more points since the turn of the year. They got that crushing victory over Hellas Verona last weekend, in which Vlahovic and Denis Zakaria scored as well. They've both been added to their squad in this. But it's really their defence that has made such a difference in the last sort of month and a half. I think they've kept clean sheets in something like 9 of their last 13 league games, Juve, which is a great turnaround considering at the start of the year they weren't really threatening up front and they were really leaky at the back as well. Villarreal, meanwhile, they turned it on towards the end of the group stages, at least in a results way. They won 3 of their last 4 games. Only Real Betis and Real Madrid have scored more than their 38 league goals. So yeah, we're looking at 2 teams that are in quite a good moment right now. And I think Juve might win this. Even though I think Villarreal can cause them a lot of problems, I'm looking forward to seeing Chukwueze again. I think he's a really exciting player. Still not maybe producing the numbers you'd expect of someone that we've talked about for quite a few years now. And obviously Danjuma has been excellent this season and in the Champions League as well, which is quite a turnaround given he struggled in the Premier League with Bournemouth, had that exceptional year in the Championship, and has just taken to Villarreal really, really nicely. So that's my pick of an unexpected great game. Henry, do you have another one that could potentially, deliver more than we're expecting?
I mean, just on the subject of Villarreal Juventus, for me that's where the ultimate big shot could lie in this round. I really do think that Villarreal, despite the fact they're having to host the home leg first, that's the game which I look at and think, Unai Emery, it's been a while since he's had a team like Villarreal into the knockout rounds of the Champions League, and this is where he comes alive, as the knockout rounds as a manager. And
shrewd operator.
He is, and I just think if you saw at the weekend, such a good victory over Real Betis away from home, matched them for shots and efforts, started with Alcacer and Moreno up front and have options off the bench, and Pino and now Lo Celso, etc. So I really do think that Villarreal could cause Juventus massive problems here. Although that said, Vlahovic signing and sort of the strong defensive record you pointed out does put Juventus in a much stronger position. If we'd previewed this a couple of weeks ago, I'd have probably really put my hat in on my bet in on Villarreal. But let's see. But yeah, other than that, the Benfica Ajax game, I think that's going to be pretty exciting. For me, I do think Ajax are going to get through this, but Benfica aren't to be messed with. They took 4 points off Barcelona in the group stages. Domestic form hasn't been great. 3 defeats in the last 9 games. Now 12 points off the leaders Porto. Jorge Jesus has or Jorge Jesus, forgive me. Either way, he's gone, isn't he? So it's a different Benfica side that got through the group stage that we're seeing now, but they are very entertaining. They're second for possession in Liga NOS, first for pass accuracy, and got the most goals in Portugal, 1 more than Porto. Bear in mind who've been very strong this season. They've scored 3 or more goals in 38% of their games. Scored 7 on 2 occasions. Wow, nuts! Love that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Benfica do. Once again, it is a bit of a free hit for the Portuguese. Well, I mean, it's a big opportunity for both these sides, isn't it? Let's face it. But Rafa Silva, he's been class. 7 goals, 14 assists in 20 league games. Darwin Nunez, who we were talking about last week, 16 goals, 2 assists on Flames at the moment. So yeah. But I personally, I just think Ajax are going to be a little bit too strong for them on this occasion. They've won 5 straight games since losing to RZ on the 12th of December, scoring 15 and conceding just 1. Got that win over PSV recently, which really strong statement, and weren't really weakened in the window. I think they kind of did all the business they wanted to. as well. So yeah, Brian Bobby as well. That they managed to get back in on loan off Leipzig. He's hit the ground running. He looks like a really excellent replacement, because I think once Haller was out the side, people weren't quite sure who else they were going to have up in attack, but they managed to bring back their former man, and he hit the ground running with some. He did the classic where he scored and went off injured against. Against PSV.
Against PSV.
Scored his goal.
That was really unfortunate.
Scored his goal off. He went. Well done. But I just think Ajax are too strong on this occasion. But yeah, this could be a big goal game. I think across the legs we could be seeing about 8 goals in this one.
Ooh, prediction from Henry. Love it. I mean, McCubs, in terms of the player of the round or potential player of the round, I mean, Henry was talking about him there, but Seb Haller, we've got to give him a shout out. Form has been ridiculous in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, 10 goals and 2 assists. That's kind of what we've seen from Haaland and Lewandowski in recent years, isn't it? So yeah, I think he's been such a good focal point for that attack. I think in the air he's really improved, and he's been banging form ever since then. Way ever since the groups ended as well. He's got 6 goals and an assist in his last 5 games for Ajax. Obviously been at the AFCON as well, but yeah, they'll be hoping he can kind of come back in and pick up where he left off, really.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions as well ahead of this round is who's going to step up for Chelsea in their match against Lille. Like, we could potentially put that down as maybe a bit of a shock, but then that drubbing at the hands of PSG last weekend, Chelsea just have a much better all-round team than Lille as well, but they haven't got going in attack so far this year. Be interesting to see where Hakim Ziyech continues his pretty good Champions League form for Chelsea. He popped up with some crucial goals, was it last year, I think, against Atletico Madrid, I seem to remember, and has generally seemed to save his best football for Chelsea in the Champions League. And Tuchel was experimenting with formations before the sort of Christmas break and those Carabao Cup ties against Spurs, and Ziyech so was sort of seemingly growing into the season as well. So hopefully he can continue that good form. And then Henry's favourite, Vinicius Jr., who we've already mentioned, that clash against Hakimi is going to be absolutely box office. In terms of a potential new star that could emerge in the last 16, Henry, is there anyone you'd like to put forward?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think for a club certainly like RB Salzburg, this is their moment. We saw Aronson attracting a lot of interest from Leeds, didn't we? Over the winter window, talks of like a €25 million bid flying in, which is big money for a Salzburg player at the moment. But I think if we were going to explore that squad even further, could go for 24-year-old Rasmus Christensen, who's just been really solid this season. He's averaged 6.2 tackles and interceptions per 90, which you kind of consider that Salzburg are the dominant force of Austrian football. That is, those numbers are pretty nuts. And no one's completed more than his 28 tackles to date. He's level with Juan Foyth, on that metric. So yeah, I think this is an exciting moment for him. However, he's going to be up against Bayern Munich, so this is a real baptism of fire to see just how good he could be. But I remember Salzburg were quite exciting against Bayern, weren't they? In the
in the groups last year,
when Jesse Marsch was in charge of them, and I'm kind of expecting the same again. I think it's going to be a bit too much for them. Bayern just keep defying expectations all the time. But yeah, Christensen, certainly one to watch out for.
Fair. And I mean, another huge underdog in the last 16 McCubs is Sporting CP. Ruben Amorim's Sporting CP. I'm excited to see them in action actually against Man City. But if they are going to get anything from it, you think Pedro Gonçalves or Pote is going to be absolutely crucial.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're not there. They're going out 7-0 on aggregate, aren't they? Let's face it. But, I mean, I can't see them really getting a foot in this game at all. But yeah, Pedro Gonçalves in particular has been essential for them, hasn't he, over the last couple of years? What a great signing he's proved to be. Also, like the aforementioned Danjuma, he's looked really good since he only recently came back from injury, didn't he? And I think he's going to be really important to Villarreal's hopes in the UCL and La Liga as well over the next few months. Back to like who I think the player of the round could be though as well. I mentioned him before, but I do think this could be a real opportunity for Jadon Sancho to really kickstart his season. Yeah. Like I think Atleti presents a really enticing challenge for him, and if his last kind of 2 performances are anything to go by, I think they're going to really struggle to contain him.
Yeah, he was excellent against Burnley for large stretches, and it was so nice to see him play with a lot of freedom. And it was on that left-hand side, which has been United's strongest side for a while now as well. And Luke Shaw looked rejuvenated as well. I'm excited to see whether they can continue that form. I think You've got Southampton this weekend and then Atletico Madrid next week, or is it the week after? I think you're in the second week actually. But yeah, very exciting for Jadon Sancho. Hopefully he can get going. Guys, who do you have down as your potential shocks of the round? What do you think will be the most surprisingly good game? Who do you think will be the potential stars, etc.? Get the answers to all those questions in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match predictions. Before we get into big match predictions, let's review last week's. And it wasn't our best by any means. So Barcelona versus Atleti, McCubs and myself both went with a draw. It was 4-2, an absolute thriller. Henry gets a point because he went for 1-0 Barca. Bayern versus Leipzig, we each get a point. No one backed a draw or Leipzig. We all went with Bayern. Henry and McCubs, fair play. They went for 3-1. It ended up being 3-2. Fair play to Leipzig. I actually thought they were really impressive in that game. So we all get a point on that one. Inter versus AC Milan, absolute mugs, the lot of us. We all backed Inter, and Giroud had something to say about that. We were all wrong. I went 3-0 Inter. How embarrassing. So going into this week, Henry is on 24, Doogie is on 23, a tight title battle, and McCubs is on 12 with work to do. But it can turn around very quickly, McCubs, and we are going to give you the chance to predict, or put your prediction first, for PSG versus Rennes, which is taking place in a few hours on Friday night at 8 p.m. It is first versus fifth in Liga. They're currently separated by 19 points. I mean, McCubs, we've already briefly touched on PSG already, but how do you see this game going?
Yeah, I can't really see it being anything other than a PSG win. Obviously, they haven't, that they have been prone to drawing a few games this season. But yeah, I think that performance over Lille was very impressive. Lionel Messi, I think, one of his best performances in a PSG shirt. He was playing kind of centrally between Di Maria and Mbappe, which was, relatively unusual. But he was superb. And he got a goal, got an assist, created 6 chances. The kind of numbers that we
the Messi of old.
We were normally used to seeing Messi produce. So with any luck, he'll be on top form again. But I guess it'll be interesting as well, because obviously they've got Real Madrid on Tuesday. So I'll be interested to see what kind of team Pochettino actually puts out, because obviously that forward line, as good as it is not the youngest. And so it makes me think that perhaps if PSG are obviously running away with the title, Champions League has obviously always been a big priority for them. I could potentially. I feel like maybe one of their star players, potentially even Messi, could be rested. So in that sense, maybe Bruno Genesio's side have a bit of a chance here, although they haven't been in great form, have they? I think they've dropped from 2nd to 5th in the last couple of months. They're now 5 points off the UCL spots, so they're not in the best of form, but they do have players who can hurt that PSG back line, players like Gaëtan Laborde, Martin Terrier. So yeah, I think it might be a tighter game than we would otherwise expect.
Nice. What would be your score? I'm gonna get yours in there first, because you were unlucky last week. You had to go third.
I think I'll go for a 2-1 to PSG.
2-1 to PSG. Do you guys follow? This is kind of random, but do you guys follow Kylian Mbappe on Instagram?
No.
Okay, so I do. It's one of the few followers that I follow. It's one of the few footballers that I follow, even along with it's really random lists. It's like Jermaine Defoe and Dele Alli and Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba. Don't know why. Don't ask me why. Anyway, last week Mbappe all throughout training was doing this cut in from the left hand side and finish into the top right hand corner, and he kept on repeating it. And then lo and behold, he did it against Lille, and I was just like, I've seen him try and practice that goal all week. And it just makes you think that behind this sort of supernatural talent is a guy that's working insanely hard at his craft. And it's just really nice to see that it was coming off for him. Because it looks so natural when you watch Mbappe, but he must be putting in hours on the training ground every week so it can come off. Anyway, that's a bit of a side point. In terms of this game, Henry, we need your score prediction.
Well, I said that PSG were going to get rolled over by Lille last week, didn't I? They went on 5-1. So I won't delve into it too much. I actually think in the return leg, I remember Rennes performed really well against PSG. Well, they certainly did.
Yeah.
I think they beat them.
Was it a draw?
They beat them at home.
Was it a draw?
They beat them at home this season. Sulemana definitely did perform really well in that game. So credit to that. But on this occasion, I just think 3-1 to PSG. I think they're going to be too strong, and they probably look to build up momentum ahead of their Champions League clash. So yeah, why not 3-1?
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of with McCubs. I can see a Cardi maybe playing in this game, maybe some serious minutes for Draxler and and Herrera the sort of second string, as it were. I'm just going to go 1-0. Just a simple 1-0 win. Let's move on to Villarreal versus Real Madrid. It takes place at Saturday at 3:15. It's 6th versus 1st. They're currently separated by 18 points. Henri, what do you think about this one?
Love it. Well, as I was just saying about Villarreal, I think they're really impressive at the moment. I remember when we did our sort of second half of the year predictions back in January, the New Year's Day video we put out. I think Villarreal were about 11th at the time when we made that video. They're now up to 6th. Which
is that the video where you said Valencia would finish top four?
I think I just said the wrong team. That's what I think I said. I went to say Villarreal, said Valencia. So yeah, maybe that was just a fault on my half. But just a quick note on Valencia. There's that great article on the BBC at the moment about Hugo Duro. I don't know if either of you saw that.
I saw that. That was a really good article.
Yeah, which talking about how he, when he played for Getafe, he blocked a goal scoring opportunity for them, which led to Valencia getting into the Copa del Rey final, and how he became like a scapegoat, and now he's gone to Valencia and really succeeded. And I thought that's just a really cool story, one definitely worth other people exploring. But back to Villarreal on this one, they only won 3 of the opening 16 league games, as we kind of mentioned. Drew 7, so they weren't doing great, but recently they're right back up in form. They've won their last 2 matches, scored at least 2 goals in all but one of their previous sort of 8 games, hitting 3 and scoring 5 twice. So they're right on it at the moment. And then, as I said, they've got real strength and depth in attack. Danjuma, we love him at the moment. So yeah, I really think that this is going to be a fascinating match. This one, I'm going to go for a 2-2 on this. I don't know if that's being bold or silly, but I'm going to go for a 2-2. I can see Villarreal causing them problems. They certainly did against Atletico Madrid, didn't they?
Nice. Points being dropped. Yeah, I agree with you. They do have a lot of entertaining players. I think Dani Parejo is great to watch. I think Manu Trigueros as well. Chuck Vasey, as we've already talked about. And at the back, they've got some sort of grizzly warriors. So Villarreal, not to be undermined or underestimated. Macubs, Real Madrid have quite a nice, favourable fixture list coming up, or nothing too testing. Do you think this is their time of the year where they'll really start opening up that gap in La Liga, or do you think this PSG clash might be a bit of a distraction for their league hopes?
I guess it just depends how Ancelotti manages the squad, because I do think there's a bit of danger of them perhaps burning out a little bit. It's a relatively old team, especially in the midfield and forward line, and this is a really busy part of the season, and they've got fairly favourable fixtures coming up, but it still includes Vallecano, who have obviously surprised a lot of people this season. Sociedad, who can really give you a battle on their day. Alaves and Mallorca are both battling relegation, so I'd expect those sides to give them at least put quite a lot of effort in against them. And then El Clasico is after that. So yeah, it's in many ways it's a really big month ahead of them, because they need to take advantage of Sevilla dropping points, and they need to somehow find a way of beating PSG. So I think there's going to be more pressure on this Real Madrid side, I think, than we've seen in recent months. And obviously Benzema's coming back from injury, so he'll need to hit the ground running again. Mendy as well, expected back for this game. I think Real Madrid will just about win this. Oof. But I don't know, Villarreal are in really good form, aren't they? I think it's going to be really, really tight. I'm going to go 2-1 to Real. I think, I feel like this is a sort of game where Benzema's going to come up clutch.
I like it. I'm going to go 2-0 to Real Madrid, I think.
Really?
Did anyone else say 2-0?
No,
I'm going with that. Yeah, I can hear you disagreeing with that, Henry, but they're a better team than Villarreal. As the table suggests, they've got better depth. I don't know. Villarreal might be slightly thinking about that clash with Juve as well. We can't forget that. So yeah, I'm going 2-0 to Real Madrid. Let's move on to our final game we are predicting. Napoli versus Inter Milan. Now this feels absolutely massive. This is taking place Saturday, 5 p.m. It is first versus second. There is 1 point between them as it stands, although Inter do have a game in hand. This is the title race, the only title race really around Europe right now, at least in the top 5 leagues, that is. So yeah, hopefully this is a humdinger of a game. Who went first last time? McCubs. Napoli. Great little resurgence. Just as the AFCON came around and we were worrying about Anguissa and Koulibaly going away even, their form has really picked up.
Yeah, they're in really good form at the moment. 4 wins out of 5 since the start of the year. They've scored 10 in that time, which is the most in the league. So kind of recapturing that form of early in the season when they were just absolutely spanking everyone in existence. They've only conceded 2 as well. They've only conceded 16 this season, which is quite... it's quite the turnaround under Spalletti. I think that back line's been really good. Obviously, the midfield has been really solid defensively as well. But I think Koulibaly and Romani have built up an excellent understanding at the back. I think this is one of Koulibaly's best seasons, and obviously he's coming back in having lifted the AFCON for Senegal. So
the mood will be good.
In great spirits. After that slightly bizarre trophy ceremony where he had to take it after, did not know what was going on there. But yeah, just glad he did manage to lift it with his teammates in the end. I think Napoli couldn't wish to come into a game like this in better form. Obviously, they did lose 5-2 to Fiorentina in the Coppa Italia, so that is a bit of a blot on their form book. I think it's really difficult. My problem here is that I think Napoli are great, and Osimhen's back as well, and I think he's only going to improve as the weeks go on. They are a really dangerous side, but I just don't see Inter losing 2 massive games in a row for some reason. Yeah. I think having said that though, Milan did get that result against them. They're not invincible. I think this might be a draw. I think this is going to be a really tense game because I think the result last weekend really kind of emphasised how tight this title race actually is. And I think I can see Inter maybe getting a little bit nervy. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw from McCubs. Okay. I mean, Henry, does it sort of feel like with that 1 point gap at the moment, it would stretch to 4 if Inter beat Bologna? Like, it'd be great for Napoli to make a statement here and beat them. I mean, are you with McCubs? Do you not see Inter slipping up twice in the league in a week?
I'm really struggling with this one. I really am. I
can hear the pain in your voice.
I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to, because I've predicted 8 goals already in the 2 previous games, and I want to kind of say, I want to keep that vibe alive and go 3-2 Inter. 3-2 to Napoli is what my heart is saying, but I'm going to follow my head, which is perhaps even more silly. I'm going to go 2-1 to Napoli on this occasion. I think I can just see the Maradona just being sort of full. They're going to have to go for this. As you say, it's a massive game. And this is still a massive opportunity for Napoli to get themselves back in a title race. As you've said, they've picked up form recently. Yeah, sod it. Why not? I'm going to go for 2-1 to Napoli, but I wouldn't be shocked at I wouldn't be shocked at any result with this, really. I think it could be 3-2. I think it could be 3-3, 2-2. I wouldn't be shocked. It's really hard to call this one. I think it's going to be a fascinating match.
Okay, well, one thing to take into account is the injuries at the moment. So Gosens, as we know, is out. He's obviously arrived injured. Correa, Philippe Caicedo as well is out. Bastoni is a doubt. I think he's also suspended for this game. Napoli, Lozano and Tuanzebe are out, but as I said, Koulibaly and Anguissa is back, and that is massive for them. Inter have won 4 of their last 7 meetings with just 1 defeat. And for that reason, and the fact Inter are my boys, I'm going to back Inter. I'm wearing the black and blue of Club Brugge today, but I'm also feeling Inter in my heart. And I'm going to go with a 2-0 Inter win. Okay, yeah, I've said it. I don't really... I've stuck with it. I'll stick with it. And I was slightly annoyed with some of the sort of coverage of the, on Italian Twitter afterwards, after the Derby della Madonnina, where they tried to paint out that Lautaro Martinez had spat on Theo Hernandez, and he just clearly hadn't. I don't know whether you guys saw that, but check it out afterwards. Check it out on Twitter. He didn't spit on Theo Hernandez. They were having some heated words in the tunnel. But yeah, he didn't spit on him. So Italian Twitter, like British Twitter, just needs to simmer down on occasions. Guys, those are our predictions. so far. No, those are our predictions, not so far, for the games this weekend. Get yours in the comments down below. Play along with us, and we'll see who comes out on top at the end of the season. Let's quickly move on to Menez18's question. We can do this very, very quickly. Do you think Milan replacing Kessie and Romagnoli with Botman and Renato is an upgrade or downgrade? I thought this was an intriguing question. Henry, what are your immediate thoughts about this?
Well, I think it's two separate questions, really, because I think Romagnoli for Botman, although I do rate Romagnoli, and I think he's drawn a bit of a short straw in the last few years in the way that's all played out, and he has been a very loyal servant to AC Milan. I do think Botman would be a refreshing change to him, but I'll sort of repeat what I said last week. I think Botman's more of a Kier replacement as a long-term option, but yeah, so that is an upgrade. Renato for Kessie, I mean, personally, I feel like they're quite different players. Renato's a bit more flash, can play wide, etc., but his injury record does put a lot of questions over his head. He's not been exactly tearing it out for Lille once again this season. I do think he needs to move, and I do think AC Milan is the right kind of destination for him. But I think that if Milan are serious about replacing Kessie, they probably have to get someone else in as well, alongside Sanchez, just to kind of shore up everything that Kessie can do in the midfield. So I'd say Botman to Romagnoli marginally makes it maybe an upgrade, but I still think that they need another body through the door in order to truly replicate kind of the qualities that Kessie brings. And I still sort of fingers crossed that he sorts it out and stays, but although it doesn't look likely.
Yeah, I mean, McCubs, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, Kessie, if he's leaving on a free, does this mean that Renato's a sort of more? Does that go up in your mind, if that makes sense? Because they sort of have to get someone in.
Yeah, and it seems like this kind of move that the player would want as well. I think it'd be fine. I don't know if they do necessarily have to bring in like a like-for-like replacement with Kessie, because let's remember Tonali's really come into his own this year.
He's been brilliant, really.
Benacer as well, I think hasn't played an awful lot, but we've seen in the past that he can be one of the best defensive midfielders in Italy. Bakayoko's hardly featured this year, partly as a result of just how good Kessie and Tonali have been. So, they I think what have they got an obligation to buy on this one? He's still on loan, isn't he? The exact details of the deal escape me a little bit, but I think they're if say Kessie is if there's a point where Kessie's definitely leaving, and Pioli really wants Bakayoko to stay, I think kind of guaranteeing him more minutes would be a good way of going about that. If that is up in the air. So I think they do. I do think like central midfield is somewhere where Milan don't really struggle at the moment. So I wouldn't be. Yeah, I feel like there are other areas of the team that should Kessie leave that they should still be focusing on in terms of next season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've talked about it for ages, but that right hand side, maybe right back depth, right winger, maybe looking for a long-term striker. Who knows? It depends where Rafa Leao is going to play in the future. But that's our thoughts on the upgrade or downgrade potential moves going on at Milan this summer. Guys, thank you so much for watching Continental Club for another week. I hope you guys enjoyed our preview and our big match predictions as ever. If they have enjoyed this and want to watch more Football Daily content, which direction would you send them in, Henry?
Gosh, I was just thinking we must have name-checked at least 16, 17 different teams in this episode from around Europe.
It's a bumper episode,
so hopefully something for everyone. I'm sure someone will complain somewhere, but there we go. Well, I've certainly enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this, please go check out the podcast this week. That's with Doogie and Sam. We had a good look at maybe discussing the Harry Maguire future and weighing up some of the big transfer windows of City, Chelsea and Newcastle after they sort of splurged big under new owners. So go check that out. And also I think on the 13th we've got a video about the MLS, because that is coming back in a couple of weeks. We're looking at the rise of the MLS, some of the numbers behind it, the Beckham effects, and they're making big moves in the market at the moment. I think the MLS is growing in stature and fascination, certainly from like an onlooker's perspective. So go check out that video. Danny is editing it, so it's always guaranteed to be good.
Nice. And McCubs, we co-wrote and explained coming out this weekend on FD, didn't we, about Wolves?
We did, yeah, about Bruno Lage and Wolves, and how he's how impressive he's been this season, really. So the kind of numbers behind that and the tactics and whatnot, go and check that out as well.
Nice. And tomorrow on Euro Football Daily, guys, the Football Pyramid Season 2 kicks off. It's back. it's a really fun episode with Obra and Pat. So get excited for that. Have a great weekend, guys, and we will catch you next week. Goodbye.